Hello, hello. Welcome back, leaders. It's day 3 of the Get Strategic and Get Promoted Bootcamp, our free 5-day Strategic Leadership Bootcamp. And as you know, if you've been with me the last couple of days, our focus this time is on getting strategic, getting promoted, and really just getting out of our own way so that all of that brilliance, all of that preparation, all of that education, all of that background and expertise and all your best intention can actually work in your favor versus inadvertently having it work against us. So yes, happy Wednesday. Welcome back, Dana. Happy Wednesday, everyone. I was going to say, I thought we were a couple of minutes early, but it's actually exactly start time. But I want to take a moment to just welcome you all back. Marie-Eve, welcome back. Good to see you again. Who else is joining us today? If this is your first time, if you did not catch either day 1 or day 2, then go ahead and just drop me a quick note in the chat and say, first day. Just type first day in the chat. Let me know if this is your first time here. And for those of you returning, thank you for being back. And let's see, I'm kind of catching up with you guys in the chat. Hi, Brian. Welcome back. Okay, I know we'll have folks streaming in over the next few minutes, but we're going to go ahead and get started because I actually want to, oh, Dana, awesome. So glad to be here again. Props to my manager for letting me prioritize this event this week. Right on. That's what I'm talking about. And think about it, you guys. If you're a leader and you have someone on your team who's trying to be strategic about how to do their job better, how to show up more effectively, how to be better aligned with what's most important to the organization, wouldn't you want to give them, right, the 30, 40 minutes each day to take advantage of that, to reframe how they're approaching their work? Anyway, it seems like a no-brainer to me. I know that's not always the case because, like you guys learned yesterday, right, when we were talking about the decision driver journey and understanding what's actually driving your decisions, hopefully you understand that not everybody is coming from a place of purpose and being intentional about what it is that they're trying to create, about, asking themselves like, well, okay, well, what's most important here, right? Is it most important that Dana has her head down and, running through the list of tasks, or is it most important that my leaders are actually investing in themselves and in how well they're able to, effectively fill their roles? So anyway, just obviously no shortage of words, but thank you for sharing that, Dana. I think that's so important. And also props to your manager for recognizing the value in having a team who's actually interested in contributing at the highest level, because that's what we're talking about today. Okay, Alicia, welcome. Happy to be here live. I'm happy you're here too at Lang. Right on. Welcome back to day 3. Susanna, hello again. Welcome. Hajnal, welcome back. Ryan, right on. Day 3, happy to be here. Melanie, hello, hello. Penelope and anyone else I've missed, welcome back. So just as a very brief recap, if this is your first time here, and my name is Bribiesca-Hedin, I'm the founder and CEO of Bridgewell Professional Services. We focus on leadership development and strategy execution. My background is in strategy execution. I've spent a lot of time partnering with the most senior leaders in the organizations to really help them, in a nice way, get out of their own way and help their teams get out of their own way and get to deliver and bring to fruition those priorities that were on the enterprise roadmap. So a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, sometimes a lot of banging our heads against the wall and feeling like I said yesterday, like you're rolling that big boulder uphill, and then at the end of the day, it like rolls back down over you and you're starting over again, and maybe from a worse place than you were the day before. But as a quick recap, let's get to this. Here we go. Okay, so today, as you know, let me make this bigger so you guys can see this even more clearly. Today, we're focusing on making meaningful progress and developing influence. I really want to address the key roadblock to that. That's going to be today's conversation. But I wanted to take a moment to briefly review, literally like a 30-second recap, the most important things that are coming out of this week. And what I was hoping would empower you to recognize where you might be missing the mark that can be easily adjusted, right? That it's not going to be a default. It won't be automatic immediately, but you can adjust and continue to remind yourself. And the foundation of this week is understanding that the only thing more important than knowing where you fit in your organization's strategic plan is knowing where they fit into yours. There's a lot wrapped up in that because it assumes you understand their plan and your role in it. And it assumes you have clarity around your own plan and understand your organization's role in it, if any. Because sometimes it's an if any, and it's not as major a role as we think it is. On day one, we talked about career mobility, the importance of enterprise strategy alignment, as well as high quality decision making, and how both of those are what determine your career mobility. And you got to understand and learn about the career mobility quadrant. And the idea is to spend most of your time in high quality decision making mode and actually making decisions from the best part of your brain in advance, being strategic versus being reactive, which is low quality decision making. And to be in high strategic alignment, meaning you are actually working on those priorities that are in fact important to your organization, your department, or potentially to your strategic plan. Okay, that was a super quick recap of day one. Day two, you understood the importance of purpose over praise and how sometimes we get caught in those bottom two levels of the decision driver journey, right? Focusing on our image and our ego and wondering what everybody else is thinking about us and how do we look good, all because we want to fill our self-esteem void with somebody else's temporary approval or atta girl or yeah, good job or whatever the case is. Then when they don't behave the way we want them to, we kind of spin. And so we talked about that because it's so important to understand whether you're making a decision out of fear, whether you're making a decision out of, wanting to get the win and the gold sticker. Both of those are coming from a place of being reactive. What we want to do is spend as much of our time possible making high quality decisions as a result of our conviction to purpose. Purpose meaning what's most important here now. What did I come here to do, get, or contribute? What is the legacy I'm trying to leave behind? You guys with me? So that's what we did on day two, so that you can understand why sometimes you and the people around you are making decisions and taking action that make you think, what are they doing? Or what was I thinking? Like, why did I make that choice? And the reason you made those choices is, in a nutshell, because your decision driver was not what's most important here now. It wasn't the purpose in the moment or your mission and your intention to show up like a chief strategist. What was driving your decisions was some sort of reaction, some desire for validation, some desire for looking good or feeling safe, which, as you learned, making decisions out of fear never actually results in you feeling safe. It's counterintuitive. And you can go back and watch, yesterday, day two, where I talk about that a little bit more. So that is a quick recap. How is that? Did you guys get all that? That was really quick. You really need to watch day one and day two to understand the breadth of it and the depth of it and really be able to apply it. But now I want to get into what we're talking about for day three. So I want to hear from you guys. Now, how many of you work in organizations who have values, pillars, values and pillars and North Stars and guiding principles or core beliefs, like posted all over the place? They're posted somewhere on your walls in your meeting rooms. They're on your intranet. They're discussed at the quarterly meetings. If you do, give me a quick yes. Give me a quick yes if that's something that you see in your organization, right? Those pillars posted all over the place, the core beliefs posted all over the place. They might even be included within your job descriptions when you guys are out in the market looking for new talent, all those things, your vitals. Yes, I see that. Okay, so that's the case for most of you, and I'm glad that you understand what I'm referring to. Because here's the thing. The pillars, the core values, the guiding principles, every organization should have them, just as every human being should have them. But here's where the disconnect happens, right? Here's where the disconnect happens. And the biggest roadblock to making meaningful progress and to developing real influence, that we believe often what the organization says it finds and holds important versus what the organization actually finds important. Okay, so I want you to hold on to that. We're going to talk about that for most of the duration of today, and I'm glad to answer questions about it. But it's so critical that you understand. And it's not that anyone's being a bad player. It's not that anyone's trying to misdirect. It's that most of the time, those pillars and those intentions are aspirational. Is there anything wrong with being aspirational? No, of course not. Is there anything wrong with being aspirational? There is not. And of course, yeah, we want to catch people winning, right? When they're exhibiting the behaviors that the organization says are important. The challenge is when what they say is important doesn't line up with, three primary things. And I'm going to talk about those in a moment. But in the interim, I want you to understand where this fits kind of in the grand scheme of things. Now, what you see on the screen is kind of the shell for the leadership development framework I use in my programs. This is what I've used. It's now tried and true to get leaders from, and leaders, again, being very clear. It doesn't matter whether you're a people leader. It matters whether your intention is to elicit the best from yourself and others toward a common goal, period. Okay? So it doesn't matter whether you have span of control, decision authority, none of that is relevant. What is relevant is you want to get the best results, the best progress, and show up in a way that encourages others around you, no matter your level or title, to do the same thing. Because we've probably all had an abundance of colleagues or bosses who we are actually doing our best work when they're not in the room. You guys with me? So let's talk about this. I want to introduce this framework because I want you to be able to take it with you. Some of you can already tell from the way that I show up, you might already be thinking, this is interesting. Like, I want to explore going further. You want to work with me further, and you'll hear later in the week how to do that. Others of you are not. And this might be all the exposure you get to this leadership framework and an approach to building yourself up and elevating others as leaders. And I want to make sure that you're equipped, because I'm here to be, as I said, Monday, a contribution. This is a free boot camp. And as far as I can tell, I'm going to continue to do this indefinitely. As long as I can, I'm going to continue to show up this way, because there's some people where my free boot camp might be the only meaningful leadership development they get, right? Because their company may not be investing in them, and they're not far along yet on their chief strategist journey to recognize that they're the ones who need to decide about what's worthy of investing in themselves versus their organization. All that said, here is what I want you to understand about this journey, that leadership does require mastery. And there are really three primary areas that we focus on to develop mastery. And it is sequential, and you'll understand why. The first one is self-mastery, or in a nutshell, knowing yourself. I'm going to talk about each of these very briefly. The next one is role mastery, and that is where today's conversation fits in. That's understanding what actually moves the needle to bring success or excellence in your role, or as it fits with your goals. And the last one is goal mastery. I often refer to it as leadership goal mastery. So we'll talk about each of these. Let me get into it because we don't have a lot of time. but I want to make sure there's enough substance here so that you understand how this fits in your own roadmap, in your own development plans, in your own future as you're developing your teams, etc. Okay, self-mastery, you already started to get a glimpse of. Self-mastery helps you understand what your decision drivers are, helps you understand what your real intentions are versus the intentions you'd have people believe you have. You guys with me? So it's very important that you understand that. Because people have a tendency of thinking that if they can just work through a to-do list. So for example, I don't want to think about values. I don't want to think about my thinking. I don't need to worry about my self-confidence. I'm just going to show up big and bold. The problem with that is that everyone can tell when you're showing up pretending to have one intention, but you actually have another. And we've all had that used car salesperson experience that feels, kind of weird after we've engaged with somebody who's up to something they don't want us to know what they're up to, right? And the same thing happens when we're interviewing. We show up really weird when we have some, secret agenda in the back of our heads or some secret concern. And I'll give you a quick example of what a very common secret concern is. The most common secret concern I see is, I hope they don't ask me about, and then fill in the blank. It might be why I left my last job, what my boss thinks about me, what I disliked most, my biggest setback, what that career, break was about. So when we walk in distracted by a concern or worry in the back of our heads, that means we're not in the real intention of connecting with the person we're with. And just a case in point, it's so funny. I had a gentleman who, came to me, and when we first had a conversation, he said, I have trouble connecting with people, and I don't know why. And after talking to him for a few minutes, it was clear there's nothing wrong with his ability to communicate and connect with me. I'm like, okay, well, tell me, so what are you thinking when you're engaging with new people? Like, what's going through your head? What are you hoping happens? He's like, well, I want them to be impressed. I was like, oh, can you guys see how showing up wanting someone to be impressed is different than showing up wanting to connect with another human being? Very different. It changes everything about how you show up, even if you say all the same things. So all that said, self-mastery is critical, because this is where you start to get out of your own way, understand the blind spots and triggers. This is where your EQ really builds up its muscle. Now, the next one is role mastery, where we're going to spend our time today. And this is where you're clear about what's actually important in the organization, where you develop an influence plan. You distinguish the enacted priorities in your organization, which we're going to talk about today. You understand the primary competency that other people need to catch you demonstrating, right? Because it's one thing that I know causes a lot of frustration, that you think, I already, do the things they say they want to see in order to be at the next level. Like, I've been doing that. Anybody in that space? Anybody in that space? Like, I've already been doing the things that I think I need to be doing to get that promotion. And yes, got it. But have the right people been catching you winning? That's the reality of it. If you're doing it in secret, if you're not demonstrating what's being looked for, what's actually being prioritized and valued, then it's hard for, the powers that be, whoever's making that decision, to bring you top of mind when those are the competencies or the results they're looking for elsewhere. Those are the competencies or results they're looking for elsewhere. Okay, and then finally, goal mastery or leadership goal mastery. This is where you distinguish your intentional leadership style. The reason we do this later is because in its absence, not you, but most of us, right? This is a human experience. What we'll do is we will look at that last article we read in HBR or the last post Adam Grant put on LinkedIn and be like, yeah, that's the kind of leader I want to be, even though it's completely opposite to who we truly are. And what I mean by that, and how you have always probably seen this, I'm going to assume all of us in this room have seen this if you've been working more than a few years. That is the boss who says something like, you're the expert. I want you to come in. I'm going to get out of your way, and you're the pro. You come in and you do your thing. I'm just going to get out of your way and remove roadblocks. Yes? You guys had that experience? But then, as soon as you're in there doing your thing, they're looking over your shoulder, telling you which font to use in your PowerPoint presentation, right? And not because it's a, public marketing document. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's also nothing wrong with being at the other extreme and being like, I'm an extreme nurturer. I like a lot of structure. I want to give you that amount of structure because I believe that it works best. The problem, and the only thing that's wrong with that, is when we say we're one type of leader, but we're actually another. So we say, no, I'm a nurturing leader. I just give me someone with the right attitude, bring them in, and I will take care of them. I will mold them. I will shape them. I will train them. There's no such thing as a stupid question. And the very first time then you go to that nurturing leader and stick your head in their office to ask a question, they want to bite your head off. See, there's nothing wrong with being either of those leadership types. What's wrong is when you're not clear about who you are, because then people can't self-select in or out based on who you really are. People who need a lot of structure are not going to go work with a boss who says, hey, I want you to be industrious. I want you to figure this out. I want you to go exhaust 3 or 4 other sources of information before you come ask me, right? And if you're walking in looking for a nurturer, that's going to feel incredibly harsh, right? It's going to feel like you made the wrong choice. So what we want to do is be really clear about who we are as leaders, who we want to be as leaders, and go from there. Now, this is also the pillar where you create your strategic plan, you create your failure plan, and really excel at obstacle management. But now you see this, right? Now you see this framework and you see how this kind of leadership journey unfolds, at least how it works in my framework and the way that I work with the leaders who choose to work with me. And it works. It's incredibly effective. And so now I want to focus, though, here on role mastery. Okay. I want to focus on role mastery. Yeah. And Mary Vale, yes, it feels like bait and switch recruitment, but here's the thing. Don't be so incredibly hard. Don't be incredibly hard on the recruiters or even on the bosses themselves, because often what they're doing is they're sharing with you their aspirational view of who they want to be as a leader, their aspirational way of being versus how they actually are. And so we almost have to have a little bit of empathy, because not everybody has gone through the process of working through that first pillar and understanding who they really are, how they're willing to show up, the type of support they're willing to provide, right? So anyway, and yes, William, absolutely. The best leaders can flex across a number of leadership styles. But here's the thing. And I think a lot of other leadership experts are going to disagree with me, but here's what I want you to understand. When you don't recognize that you don't actually naturally work in one of those leadership styles, it's going to require more effort than you realize. It's going to require more effort than you realize. And what happens is you end up falling into frustration and into a tone of just do what I say, and into wondering why it's so difficult and why you seem to repeat yourself 7 or 8 times and somehow it still doesn't land. You guys with me? Have you ever had that experience? And you're just like, I don't understand. I'm saying the thing, and somehow it's just not landing. And that all really lands in the space that you don't understand. We don't understand how much it requires in terms of clarity around who we really are, what we can be counted on for, what we can be counted on for in the space of developing other leaders, and how we're most confident showing up, right? So all those things, we just need to have awareness. Should we be able to balance and flex? Absolutely. Do we have enough evidence from our own individual experiences, from your own individual experiences, to know that few people do that effectively? Unfortunately, yes. I'm going to say yes. So let's go back to role mastery. And I'm glad that this is having you guys ask these questions and consider the fact that yes, we know leaders need to flex. And yet I want you to think about the number of leaders you've seen flex effectively. How we show up is how we show up. We can be strategic, right? So that we can distinguish based on who we are, how best to show up. But we can't pretend to be one thing when we're actually something else. It makes the job really hard. Remember how I said it's not supposed to be an experience of pushing the boulder uphill and having it roll back down over you? It's not supposed to be that way. It feels that way when we're pretending. Pretense is costly. And I'm not getting into that conversation right now, but it's so important that we get that. Now, role mastery. Role mastery is about understanding what's actually most important to your organization, not what they say is important. And there's what an organization or a person says they value, and there's what they actually value. In my groups, in my leadership circles, I actually have my clients do a time audit, and I invite you to do the same thing. Do a time audit to see how you're actually investing your time and effort. And then I want you to set it aside for a day or two, pick it back up, and look at how you're investing your time and effort. If this were someone else's piece of paper with their time and effort investments, what would you presume is most important to them? So is how you're investing your time and effort aligned with what you say is most important to you? Or is this something else? And again, this isn't something we do to have people shame themselves. That's not how that works. This is to bring awareness, because awareness has to come before action. So this is simply to bring awareness and be like, hey, okay, yeah. I clearly need to make some adjustment in this part of my life, or how I'm investing time and effort and attention here. Same happens for an organization, right? Those values pillars, those core beliefs, those competencies they say they hold in high regard are aspirational. But then there's what they actually value, right? There's what they actually value. And when we're working in line with what an organization actually values, we're up here high when it has to do with strategic alignment, even if it's not something that's listed within the, on the intranet or talked about at the quarterly meetings. So for example, and this might strike a nerve with a few, but if an organization says that it prioritizes diversity and inclusion, right? So let's say that the organization says it prioritizes diversity and inclusion. We want a diverse workforce, but nowhere to be seen are real and public measures of their efforts, their investment, and their initiatives in support of diversity and inclusion. Then right now, it's still aspirational. It's not actually a guiding principle. You guys with me? And the same thing happens for any of the other competencies or aspects or values that an organization says they value. So if you believe your organization, in this example, values diversity and inclusion, and so you're actually kind of devoting your time, your effort, your energy, and saying, hey, okay, well, I'm going to help put on these events with let's say with our business resource groups or ERG, or I'm going to work with the learning and development team and help them put on this, fantastic program about inclusion and developing leaders. You're doing these things, and maybe the organization is even giving you time to do them, but the reality is you're spending time doing what some organizations consider housework. Have you guys heard that? Housework in the office? When you're doing things that they say they value, but they don't actually contribute to you being seen as a leader or being considered for key opportunities. We got to watch out for this. We got to watch out for this because we want to believe that an organization lives its values. But the fact of the matter is that most are still trying to figure it out. So enacted priorities allow you to zoom into what an organization actually values. And we do this by looking at three things. This is my recommendation, and you can look elsewhere. There might be something that's more valuable in your organization in terms of assessing where they spend their time, where they're making financial investments, and who they're promoting. Okay, where they spend their time, where they make financial investments, and who they're promoting. That is going to be most important above and beyond whatever is on those values, pillars, and posters. Look to the person that they're promoting. Look to the characteristics, and values demonstrated by the people they're promoting. Are they in line with what's on those values posters? Are they in line with what's heralded at the quarterly meetings? Or are they missing the mark? Are they missing the mark? Can you guys see how thinking that your organization values, just the example that I get, DEI, and investing your effort, your heart, your soul, your passion, contributing to that effort, can you see how that might not yield the results you're looking for? Okay, so I know that was a lot, and it got really serious really fast. So I'm going to stop because I know I can go on for quite a bit, but I want to hear from you now, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, if you're being really honest, how clear are you about your organization's enacted priorities? What's actually most important to either elevating in your organization, your department, your role? I want to go ahead and give yourselves a score because I want to see where you guys are with this. I want to see where you guys are with this. Okay, I see a 5. What else? An 8, a 6, excellent. Okay. 6 and 7. And you don't have to out yourselves if you're concerned about giving yourselves too low a score. But I want you to think about how differently you would show up if your clarity on what was most important was actually a 9 or 10. So for a couple of you, it's at a 9, right? For a couple of you, it's at a 9, and that's fantastic. Now, for those of you where it is not a 9, if you were to completely master this area, what would it give you as it relates to your career? If you're willing to share, I would love to see it in the chat. If you're willing to share, if you were able to master this and be at a 9 or 10, what would it give you in your career? Let's see, I see more numbers. Yeah. Let's see, a lot of 6s, as low as some 2s. People who've experienced anywhere from a 2 to a 10. Yeah. Sorry, did you get the question answered? Mia, did you get the question answered? I wasn't sure if you heard that, but my question was, if you were to completely master this area and developing and maintaining clarity on your organization's enacted priorities, right? What they actually value versus what they say they value, what would it give you? What would it give you? Yeah. So, Dana, exactly. In short, I need to actually apply my knowledge of the priorities and allow my personal diversity goals to take more of a back seat. Whether they take a back seat or not is a different conversation. But what this allows you to do is to now make high quality decisions about how and whether this organization, your current role, fits into your strategic plan. So I want you to get that. It doesn't mean that you need to twist and contort yourself now to become something for the organization, but that you need to be clear about what's actually being valued and whether that lines up with what you actually value and how you actually want to devote your time and energy and your contribution and your brilliance, right? Because if you're clear, you can make eyes wide open decisions about what's best for you. But when you're in an environment where everyone is pretending, then you're literally along for the ride for whatever they want to serve up next. And that is fantastic if it turns out those values are aligned. But it is a train wreck when it turns out it's not. And then you feel deceived. You feel cheated. You feel taken advantage of. You guys with me? It gets very personal very quickly when we are surprised by misaligned values. Okay, what questions do you have for me? We're already over. But I'm willing to stay another 10 minutes for any questions we have. I'm willing to stay another 10 minutes for any questions that you have. Yeah, and thank you for your comments. I love this. I love this. So I think this was in response to the question in terms of what would it give you if you were mastering understanding enacted priorities. This is improvement in diplomatic skills and actual growth. Yes. You know, if you are in a space where you're not looking for growth and you just want to be kind of in a maintain the status quo, and even then, you know, that's challenging because the only constant is change, and the reality is that, you know, the one key skill we all need to develop is excellence at navigating change. Like that's the reality, but that's a conversation for another day, you guys. But if you're not trying to go anywhere, then you can be reasonably clear and certain that no one's going to bother you, no one's going to upend your ship, and you're just going to continue to do what you're doing. But if you're trying to go somewhere, that's where you really need to pay attention to those enacted priorities. Let's see, what else is that? Yeah, if you're really aligned, if you're really clear and you have mastery in this space, you get to do more work that's meaningful and recognized. Absolutely. And I see, let's see, what else? I just saw less stress in here a second ago. I just saw, here we go, less stress. Absolutely. Anybody else would be less stressed if you were clear on enacted priorities and aligning your effort and energy, assuming you want to stay in this organization, assuming you've concluded that the enacted priorities are in fact in line with who you are, who you want to be, how you show up, how you want to grow, all those things. Right? Can't you imagine it being far less stressful because you're no longer running around confused, right? Let me go back. You're no longer running around in this, you know, kind of bottom right where there is slow movement, but you're considered steady and reliable because you do really good work, you contribute well, but it's not aligned with what the organization says is most important. What the organization means is most important. So the distinction between understanding, you know, the posted priorities, what we put on our values posters, and enacted priorities, and I think I alluded to this yesterday or the day before, but it is like, you're driving along, and I had a few years ago, I had a Prius which had the map system, but you had to swap out the CD for the map system like every couple of years because it didn't have updates. It was literally like a hard, CD, like we used to listen to music on. And so I'd be going someplace, and this has happened a lot in Burbank and, near where I live. And there are like new freeway entrances and off ramps, new streets that exist, streets that no longer exist. So I'm here driving along my way thinking that I'm going to get from point A to point B, realizing all along I was looking at the wrong map. That is the difference this makes, right? That is the difference that this makes. You go from looking at the wrong map to looking at the right one. So let's see, what questions do we have? What questions do we have? Yes. Mia, yes, so important to be clear on our own values. So important to be clear, and also to understand the organization's values. And then you get to decide. There is nothing wrong with having misaligned values, except not knowing that you have misaligned values. Because then you're showing up, pouring your heart and effort into work that in fact is not valuable. Work that's not valuable to your organization. Okay, now that's right, we haven't even gotten into this. I wanted to talk about influence, but the conversation actually ties together. The conversation actually ties together because influence comes from engaging in relationships and efforts that are actually important to the organization. Okay, so, sit for a second with that and see if that starts to answer the question. When we are aligned with what's actually important to the organization and making high quality decisions, right? So we're in that top right corner of the quadrant, of the career mobility quadrant you learned about. In that space, you are spending your time intentionally on what matters most. You're spending your time with people aligned with what matters most. You're spending your time talking about what matters most. The bottom line is that is where you and how you build influence. You need to have enterprise strategy alignment. If you want influence within your organization, you need to be in the conversation that's relevant and important to your organization. Never again is it okay for you to say, I don't know what's on my organization's strategic roadmap. You will never have the influence and career you're looking for when you don't understand the landscape within your own employer, within your own organization, right? You're asking them to invest in you, right, and your growth, but even some of what I'd consider to be the basics are sometimes not addressed on the individual level, meaning understanding how you fit into that organization and whether you even want to fit into that organization. Because again, no one has more agency in your career and your growth and your impact and your leadership development and your ability to elevate other leaders than you do. No one has more agency than you do. So please do not leave it into the organization's hands to figure out your values. Now, should they have career ladders and all those things figured out for us, right? What's typically considered in the HR world as, career mobility? Yes, they should have it figured out. Should your career, should your impact, should your income, should your growth, should your contribution be dependent on them getting it right? No, right? It should not be dependent on them getting it right. This is your show. You are the chief strategist of your career. No one else. Should they do the right thing? Yes. Can you still be equipped to make better decisions even when they're not doing the right thing? Absolutely. Okay, you guys. Key takeaways. Who's still here with me? Key takeaways. Actually, most of you are still here with me, so that's fantastic. I know that was a lot. That was a lot, right? So let's see, Hajnal. I've been trying to drag the organization back to its stated values. Yes. And get clear. Is it back to or up to, right? Because maybe they've never been at their stated values. Maybe they've never been at their stated values. Let's see, Nathan. What time frame should one allow before transitioning from org to org when the first red flag comes into play, or should one give another leader watch you win? Okay, so I'm thinking you're asking, like, how long should I wait or how patient should I be before I get out? I think only you can answer that. And this is why I'm saying it this way, right? Because only you understand where your organization fits in your strategic plan, which is why the bigger question is, what's on your plan? What does your plan tell us or tell you? Because here's the thing, I'm just going to give you like a really simple example, right? A client who wanted to get into this, senior leader development program within the organization. She did not get it. She was not invited to be in the program. And so she's thinking, okay, well, then I need to go. And I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. Maybe yes, maybe no, but here's what I want you to consider. What did you want to get out of the program? What was your intention for, being in that program? What were you hoping to elicit from it? What were you hoping it would elicit from you? What was your intended outcome from being in that program? Now, see, if the intended outcome was just, well, I wanted to be picked by the organization, because then I'd feel like I got the gold sticker. I'd feel like they saw me, all of those things. Then that's one thing, right? You're going to make one decision. But if the intended outcome was to learn some of those leadership competencies, have exposure to other parts of the organization, then that's when you can bring your high quality decision making and get strategic about, okay, there's more than one way to, I don't know if I'm going to say make a cup of coffee. I don't like the idea of skinning cats, but there's more than one way to make a cup of coffee, right? So if my drip coffee maker is broken, maybe I'm going to look at the percolator. If that's broken, maybe I'm going to use my little stovetop, espresso maker. You guys with me? If that's not working, maybe I'll use the pour over mechanism, but I'm still going to get to the outcome of my cup of coffee. Same goes for your career. Same goes for your career. So how else can you get to the ends that you'd intended for that program that someone said no to, right? And again, that no is just a not yet. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try or ask again next year. But when instead we go to that space of wallowing in, why didn't they pick me? And I've worked so hard and they don't like me, they don't value me. Here's the thing. That might be 100% true. Maybe they don't value you. But unless you're having that internal conversation inform your next steps, it's worthless, right? Instead, I invite you to get back to what's most important here now. What was I trying to accomplish with that? What am I trying to see myself develop within this organization? I want them to catch me winning because of X, right? I want them to give me a shot at that next big deal, right? That type of thing. But get really clear, because there's more than one way to make a cup of coffee. If it didn't work going that way, it might work going this way. And if that doesn't work, there are another 12 ways. So, you guys, it's now 48 minutes. I'm going to have to say goodbye. Okay, very, very, very important. If you are not already enrolled in the bootcamp officially, you're not going to have access to tonight's How to Say It session. You're not going to have access to the How to Say It session. So please enroll. You guys, I love being with you. This one's going to be not on social. It's going to be within the private portal. So please enroll. I want to be with you. I want to be able to answer your questions about having the right conversations. And I want to help you understand how you might need to reframe some of those challenging conversations so that you can show up powerfully. So that's tonight. But tomorrow, we're continuing right here, wherever you're joining us today, for day 4, where we're talking about roadblocks to confidence and to managing failure. Because I know some of you guys, that F word is just devastating, and it doesn't have to be. So we're going to clean that up tomorrow. Okay, everyone. I love you. Go out there and lead, and I will see you back here tomorrow. Bye.